This hit yesterday, and I think this is so pertinent to what you guys are trying to do with the book and just kind of the world at large. This woman left MSNBC, and here's why. This is her letter that she wrote. Her name is Ariana Picari. Personal news: why I'm now leaving MSNBC. Just quit. That's the advice Alec gave a year and a half ago. So she was expressing concerns about her job. Why was she expressing concerns about her job? Well, because they're not really doing news. Here's some of the verbiage from her piece. It's possible that I'm more sensitive to the editorial process due to my background in public radio, where no decision I ever witnessed was predicated on how a topic or guest would, quote, rate. The longer I was at MSNBC, the more I saw such choices. It's practically baked to the editorial process, and those decisions affect news content every day. The cancer, so she says, somebody, a TV veteran said this to her. Now, she doesn't use names in this. We are a cancer and there is no cure. I guess occasionally people in TV news tell the truth, and it's when they're talking to their colleagues behind closed doors. We are a cancer and there is no cure. As it is, this is getting back to her piece, this cancer stokes national division, even in the middle of a civil rights crisis. The cancer risks human life, even in the middle of pandemic. This is an interesting take. The primary focus quickly became what Donald Trump was doing poorly to address the crisis, rather than the science itself. As new details have become available about antibodies, a vaccine, or how COVID actually spreads, producers still want to focus on the politics. This cancer risks our democracy. Even in the middle of a presidential election, any discussion about the election usually focuses on Donald Trump, not Joe Biden, a repeat offense from 2016. And here, this was a really interesting quote that she has here, where one of her colleagues basically says, we're not news. They go, we're not news. Oh, here we go. Here's the quote. Our viewers don't really, they're referring to MSNBC. This is an MSNBC producer. Our viewers don't really consider us the news. They come to us for comfort. Truer words were never spoken about MSNBC. That should be their slogan if they're being honest.
Right. But the problem is the viewers do come in theory for the news, but what they get is comfort. Now, if they knew it was entertainment, if it said on the bottom, entertainment only, or asterisk, if the Chiron said, DNC employees or something like that on the bottom, it'd be different. But the problem is all our centrist friends think that they're getting unbiased news, It's propaganda.
I think it's also like subtle. Like they think that, oh, I'm doing my due diligence because I just clocked in my time watching some news, but really you were just watching anti-Trump catnip, and deep down that's what you were doing. But you feel like, well, I can repeat a couple talking points now. I can repeat a couple talking points, and it's really about stuff that, let's be honest, is just fluff. I mean, Rachel Maddow just repeated fluff for 4 years. She just did fluff for 4 years. And she knew exactly what she was doing. She knew what she was doing because she knew during the Obama years who was the number one personality? Sean Hannity. Why? Because some people like the president. Some people are opposed to the president. And those people who are opposed, they really need their catnip because they think whatever's going on in the White House is, the be all and end all of everything. So they need their catnip. So Sean Hannity was number one while Obama was president. Rachel Maddow, number one while Trump's president. She knew exactly what she was doing.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, props to this woman. That's amazing. I can't even fathom the vitriol she's going to get by coming out with that.
Yeah, I mean, well, and she walked away. I mean, now I don't know what she'll do next, but she walked away. I don't know what she was doing in public radio. If she was referring to NPR, I don't share her enthusiasm for it, but I mean, it's still, this is a peek under the hood where she's basically saying our network doesn't even think we're news. Even we know we're not doing a civil service to the American people. We're just basically chasing ratings, and we're making sure our advertisers are happy. I mean, so much of what goes on MSNBC, and again, all the cable networks are guilty of this. But the reason you guys are doing what you're doing, where you really single out MSNBC, is because there's still so many people in this country that think Fox News is the only guilty culprit. And Fox News
Right.
is terrible. Don't get me wrong. Fox News is atrocious. But they all do the same thing.
But
cable news, it's not news.
the one thing I would add, though, it's not entirely ratings. It's keeping the donors happy with the ratings too, because without a doubt, going all the way back to 2015, Bernie would have gotten big ratings for them.
Yeah.
And they couldn't allow that,
Right.
So the issues do matter because they have to have a corporate spin to them. I mean, like where they really harm us is in things like, they'll take internet neutrality, for example. So they pretend to have unbiased people on to discuss net neutrality, but they're biased people. And one of them will have a view like, well, it's not the end of the world. And that'll be the, whatever kind of thing. And then, we repealed net neutrality.
Well, it was amazing. I mean, I actually saw a segment listened to a segment on net neutrality on NPR where they had a cable lobbyist and a cable lobbyist discuss net neutrality. No bias there. And then you had Rachel Maddow pretend like she doesn't understand it. I mean, you had her go, because she wouldn't go as far. I mean, MSNBC is owned by Comcast, one of the biggest anti-net neutrality companies out there. She wouldn't go on to say, like, this is no big deal. She couldn't say that because she knows better. She's like, I can't just straight up. But she pretended like, she's like, well, this is a big deal. I don't know what it's going to do, but it's a big deal. Really, Rachel, you don't understand how a utility, something in our lives that we rely on, that we need, like flowing water or a phone call, when you treat the internet that way, it remains free and open. And we've had net neutrality since the advent on the internet. We got it cemented on the books in 2015. Then it got repealed, and it got repealed because the cable companies wanted to mess with it. And that's why we're seeing the slow boil effects of that now. And we have an organized duopoly for internet access. That's why we pay more for crappier internet than a lot of other countries. You don't understand all that. That's too complicated. It's not too complicated. No. You get it. You get it. You just can't report on it honestly. And it goes to, you look at who advertises on these networks: oil and gas companies, weapons manufacturers. What, you think they're trying to get the word out? No, they're buying favorable coverage. No consumer watching the news is like, I am in the market for a new tank. I'm glad I saw this commercial.
Yeah.
But they're buying favorable coverage. They don't want you to talk about what the empire's really doing all over the world. They don't want you to talk about what's really going on in the environment because they want to drill, baby, drill. And they don't want you to talk about any of the social movements that are really going on because they like the status quo, and any social movement threatens the status quo. That's why every single coverage of every single protest, from SDS back in the 60s to Occupy, to DAPL, to Black Lives Matter, and everything in between, is marginalized, trivialized, and misreported on purpose.
Absolutely. And that's why we should be, all of us in independent media should be so proud that, we may not be making millions and on TV for, entertainment purposes, but at least we're doing something we can be proud of.
Well, and here's the other connection here. We're without a free and open internet, we're donezo. We are donezo without a free and open internet. And people make it seem like it'll never happen, but it could. I mean, we lost radio, we lost TV. You think we can't just lose another medium? You think it's impossible that we'll be telling our kids and our grandkids, like, hey, you used to be able to have your own podcast. Really? You didn't have to be on the Disney network or HBO? No, anyone could just have a podcast. And it loaded like under 5.5 hours. Yeah, it did.
Oh, it could totally go away. I mean, like this election cycle, everyone's pretending free college is something that is just totally undoable, but we had free college. Things can get worse and keep getting worse and worse and worse.
It's so unbelievable when they have those discussions of just like, when you just look at, I think there should just be, someone needs to just make the t-shirt that just says Wall Street at the end of the day really pulls in an estimated quadrillion. And that should just be all that's on the t-shirt. Quadrillion. Do you know how many zeros are in a quadrillion? I honestly don't, but I know it's a freaking lot. It's a lot. that could pay for whatever many times over. And I know like there's some, you know, like it's kind of like a nominal number, so it's not, but still, when it's that high, we could pay for free college. We could pay for, I mean, all this stuff we could pay for. And by the way, you take a second to learn a little bit about MMT, and you find out that, yeah, we can really pay for this. It's not an issue. It's a non-issue. It's just a right-wing talking point by a federal government who's actively working against the people because that's all the donors let them do.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Democratic Party was sincere about changing any of this, they would be bringing up that those are Republican talking points, and they don't even do that anymore. They don't even argue against means testing all these programs. They don't push back on anything at all, really.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your